Viewing inferencing and going back in the text to find direct quotes that support our answer. Our statement says, I can draw inferences from a text. I am going to show you how to break down our thinking by using an inferencing graphic organizer. What is inferencing, you might ask? Well, inferencing is using a combination of clues from the text and also what you know, which is what we call our schema. We combine both of those and we come up with our inference, which is what has the author not specifically stated. So when you make an inference, you go beyond the author's words to understand what is not actually said in the text. So basically, it's what do you think? So whenever a teacher asks, make an inference, it's what do you think? So how do you infer? Well, you infer by thinking about what the characters are doing, their actions. You think about the characters' feelings. You think about what you already know. You think about personal experiences that you have had. You think about what the character says. You think about the character's features. You think about the plot and why certain events take place. And you also think about the setting and why that setting is important. So here are some questions that you will come in contact with that ask you to provide evidence to support your answer, or will ask you to make an inference based upon the selection or quote that is given. So here are some question stems that you will come in contact with. What do you think this selection, story, chapter, paragraph is about? Why do you think that? Which quote, select, sentence, words brought you to that conclusion? Prove your answer by using evidence from the text. What statement implies? What is the purpose of the statement? Keep a lookout for these types of questions so you know how to answer them. Here's an inferencing graphic organizer. Notice that it has a combination of evidence and schema, and then finally we get to our inference. I even provided you with sentence starters when you are typing out your answers. Normally, we start with the evidence, go to our schema, and then produce our inference. Today, however, I'm going to show you how to work backwards, with first making an inference and then providing your evidence and how you come to your conclusion. Here's a test-taking strategy. So, before starting this process, make sure you read the questions first before reading the text. This ensures that when you are reading the selection, you are also thinking about what you're looking for. So in this case, the question states, what kind of person would you describe Esperanza as? I'm going to read it again to make sure I understand. What kind of person would you describe Esperanza as? All right, now let's read the text. Make sure you're thinking about this question. Esperanza stood frozen for a moment, remembering Marta's meanness the first day in the truck. If she helped her and someone found out, Esperanza would be on the next bus herself. She couldn't risk it and started to say no. But then she thought about Marta and her mother holding hands and couldn't imagine them being separated from each other. And besides, they were both citizens. They had every right to be here. She turned around and headed back to where the others were working. No one paid any attention to her. They were all busy talking about the sweep. She picked up a bundle of asparagus, several burlap sacks from a stack, and a dirty apron that someone had left on a hook. She quietly wandered back to Marta's hiding place. La migra is still out front, she said in a hushed voice. They will probably leave in an hour when the shed closes. She handed the apron and the asparagus to Marta. When you leave, put on the apron and carry the asparagus so you'll look like a worker, just in case anyone stops you. Gracias, whispered Marta. I'm sorry I misjudged you. This is from Esperanza Rising, the chapter called Asparagus. Okay, so now, going back to the question, what kind of person would you describe Esperanza as? Now remember, Esperanza ended up helping Marta. But in the beginning, we learned that Marta actually was not very nice to Esperanza. So, Esperanza helped Marta even if she was very rude to her. So let's think. What kind of person would we describe Esperanza? Well, I'm going to go ahead and use the sentence starter that was provided for me. So I think Esperanza is a kind and helpful person. Okay, so I think she's a kind person for helping Marta. I also identify her character trait as being helpful. Now, how can I prove from the text that she is this way? Let's find quotes that strictly relate to Esperanza being kind and helpful. Let's see. In the first paragraph, it talks about how she was frozen. She remembered Marta's meanness the first day. If she helped her and someone found out, she would be on the next bus herself. She couldn't risk it, but she could not imagine them being separated, her mother and Marta. There might be something in there. Let's look in the second paragraph. She turned around and headed back to where the others were working. No one paid any attention. She quietly wandered back to Marta's hiding place. She said, they will probably look. She handed the apron and the asparagus to Marta. When you leave, put this on. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this because she gave her something. But why did she give it to her? Well, she gave it to her to help her out because she was hiding. So let's find where it talks about Marta hiding. She would be the next bus. Meanness the first day. Shouldn't risk getting back. Then she thought about Mark and her mother holding hands. Made any intention. They were all busy. She picked up a bundle of asparagus, several burlap sacks and stack, and a dirty apron. That's important because that's what she gave to Marta. Wandered back to Marta's hiding place. Awesome. And also something really important. Gracias, whispered Marta. I'm sorry I misjudged you. So obviously we know from that quote that Marta was not very nice to Esperanza or thought highly of her in the beginning. So now let's work backwards. If we know that Esperanza was kind and helpful, how do we know that? Well, what quotes did we identify that helped her? She handed the apron and the asparagus to Marta. Okay, so this quote, she handed the apron and the asparagus to Marta. Well, whenever you hand something to somebody, usually you're being very helpful. Oh my goodness, I forgot my sentence starters. Whoops, but thankfully I can go back and fix my answer. It says, boom, perfect. Now we can explain what we know about this quote, meaning she's helpful. I know Esperanza was being helpful because she willingly handed Marta some items. Awesome. Okay, so now let's identify a different quote. So that's her being helpful. How in the world do we know that she is being kind? Well, we can say that, gracias, whispered Marta. I'm sorry I misjudged you. Now, it says, always have to have that sentence starter. Then we put quotation marks and put exactly what they said. Gracias. Oh my goodness, I spelt that wrong. Gracias, whispered Marta. I'm sorry I misjudged you. I will fix my mistakes. No worries there. We all make mistakes. All right, so we identified the quote. Now we're going to talk about what we know. I know that when someone says thank you, that means they were helped or shown kindness. All right, so we identified a quote, several quotes. There's two S's. We also identified, what we already know based upon what the quote said. And that supported the fact that we identified that Esperanza is kind and helpful. All right, guys, so this is how you infer. You can always infer and then work backwards. You always have to make sure you support your thought process by going back in the text, finding your answer or a direct quote that specifically talks about how you know, in this case, Esperanza and her character traits. I'm very proud of you. Good luck today.